CTV's Colton Praill standing by at our Ottawa bureau with the latest for us. Colton, a long and wide-ranging news conference held by Donald Trump and Mark Carney in the Oval Office a little bit earlier today. I know the expectations were tempered, but it certainly felt that the president was hinting that there was something that was going to come out of possibly of these meetings this afternoon. What did you make, again, of a lot of what we heard before the actual meeting itself?
Yeah, certainly hinting. He said Canada was going to be ecstatic and love what came out of this meeting. He wouldn't say what was going to come out of this meeting, but to your point, he certainly was hinting that there was an opportunity to negotiate. Now, the government, prior to this had been cautious, but hinting that perhaps steel could be one area where there was room to negotiate with the United States. And you saw Donald Trump at the start of this meeting say that the two leaders were going to spend some time, make some deals, and do things that are good for both our countries and the markets. Later on, saying on steel specifically that they're working on formulas, and I think we'll get there. Now, important to note that by formulas, he could be referring to some sort of tariff rate quota. That's what we're seeing in the UK and in the EU. Those haven't been established yet, and those talks recently restarted with the UK, but they are working on quota formulas with those two blocks. And so there is a history there of potentially the US looking at steel quotas rather than just base tariffs or flatline tariffs. So that's going to be really interesting to watch to see what comes out of this. The other really unique comment that we saw from the Prime Minister and his characterization of the relationship between Canada and the United States, he highlighted that Canada is the largest foreign investor in the U.S., saying that in the last 5 years, Canada has invested about $5 billion. In the last 5 years, Canada has invested about $500 billion, but over the next 5 years, Canada could invest $1 trillion, crucially, if we get the deal that's expected to come. That is really interesting. He didn't say what that deal is, and we don't have details yet, but we've seen so frequently when the U.S. has signed deals, it's included further investment in the country, and we've seen Donald Trump bring up areas where that investment could occur, in the military, in the Golden Dome project, for example. And so the president, the Prime Minister, highlighting to the president an opportunity for future investment, a doubling of investment in America is very interesting. And if that does come to bear, where that investment is also going to be incredibly unique and interesting to watch. I keep saying interesting because there's so few details here, but how Mr. Carney sells that to Canadians, where those dollars go, especially after spending the past few months talking about the need to, in part, decouple from the U.S. and to look elsewhere when it comes to military suppliers and trade partners. So if there is going to be a significant influx of cash into the U.S. from Canada, where is that going and what does it look like? The final thing that I thought was interesting that we should talk about and we should mention was the president saying that the fentanyl crisis is not over. He does not think it will ever be over, but acknowledging he does believe Canada has done some good work on the border. Don't forget, that is the legal baseline for those general tariffs on Canada. Not for the sectoral tariffs, but for general tariffs. Fentanyl is still the legal baseline for those.
Yeah, again, a few interesting ones, and point taken for sure about fentanyl and where things stand, and at least some of the praise on that part. And the other part, when you bring up the doubling of investment in the United States for the next 5 years, it's an interesting dynamic because the Prime Minister has also talked about austerity measures. The budget is coming in a few weeks. It's coming at the beginning of November. And again, we're talking about the budget and the projections for, how much larger the deficit is going to grow to. And that's a very significant number on top of the expected rise in defense spending. Now here we're going, possibly Canada spending up to $1 trillion over the next 5 years in the U.S.
Absolutely. And so the question becomes, is there a way to do both? Can you spend some of those defense dollars in the U.S. to try to merge, lower your costs by coalescing them into one spend? That's a possibility. But we've also seen Mark Carney repeatedly say that he wants to expand where our defense dollars are going, wants to invest in a defense industrial base in Canada that doesn't specifically want 80 cents of every dollar on defense to be going to the U.S. market. And so, to your point, that's the question. If we are going to see that investment, we need to see details because there are so many questions about where those dollars are coming from, how they're going to be spent, especially in light of the austerity budget and the significant deficit that we do know is coming and that Mark Carney has said is going to be coming. There are a lot of details here to iron out, but to your point earlier, the president was very clear. He thinks Canada is going to like the end of this meeting. Of course, he is a very mercurial man, and what exactly he anticipates Canadians will like is still to be determined, but it does signify that perhaps those early whispers from government about some movement on steel tariffs or other sectoral tariffs is possible or could come out of this meeting.
We are keeping a close eye on Washington right now. For now, Colton Praill in Ottawa. Thanks for this, Colton. Appreciate it.
Anytime.